Hi guys, welcome back to 13th video tutorial of J2W. The previous video we discussed about the very basic example of JDBC and the four very important steps to create JDBC connection to a database, and we also tried to get the results from products table and we printed the values. So what are the data we have? So as we have only one record in the database, so it just printed one set of records in the console. If you have multiple sets, then you can it will print all the records, how many records it is there, irrespective of the number of records. It will print all the records. It will actually display the result in the console. If it is a UI based application, so these results you can pass it to the UI, and UI you will print the data in user interface suppose if you're looking at any application like Facebook application. If you open your Facebook, so you'll be seeing all the connections who are already connected, means who are already friends to you, and who are all suggestions and everything. So all these data are actually getting from database dynamically. So these are we can get data from database with a very basic example. Now we can see for each class like what different methods, a set of methods are available for other than the methods what we discussed now. We can see what other methods are available. Let's start with the driver manager class. Let me clear this. So driver manager. So driver manager, this is actually a class. This class contains methods like, so earlier we already discussed get connection. So other than that, what other methods we have? The first one will be register driver. So register driver is actually used for registering a driver to a JVM. So this actually takes a driver class as input. So this is the one method it is having. The other method will be, suppose if you don't want to, if the registration is done and you don't want to keep it JVM again, so you can deregister the driver. For deregistering driver, you have a method called deregister driver. You should pass the driver. To the driver you need to unregister, that you need to pass it in a deregister driver method. So the other method which we discussed already, that is get connection. Get connection which is used to the one which we used is string URL and username and password. The last method which is which will take only URL, which is we discussed like the Microsoft DSN details will be giving. So these is used for JDBC ODBC driver. So DSN details. So these are all the different types of methods are available in a driver manager class. So either you can get the connection using driver manager.get connection, or you can register the driver first, then you can get the connection. So instead of using class.forName, you can use driver manager.register driver. So either one you can use it for making the driver manager to be initialized to JVM. So that's about the driver manager class. The other important one is the connection. So connection, it's a, if you see in the description, like it's not a class, it's an interface. So we'll see what connection interface will actually contains the data. Connection is an interface. Make sure guys, once you attended the interview, then your interviewer will ask like what is a class and what is the interface specifically for JDBC topics alone. So in JDBC topics, they will ask whether driver manager is a class or interface. So you should remember it's a class. So it is having the set of methods. Now we can see connection interface. It's an interface. It actually contains the methods like, so the one which we used, connection create statement, right? The create statement will be there. That's syntax will be create statement. It won't take any parameters and it will return the statement object. So the connection interface actually takes no parameter, it will return the statement interface. This is the first method the connection interface is having. The other method will be create statement. This actually takes parameters. That one is int type, result set type, and result set concurrency. So you should remember this method as well for interview purpose. The reason is like this method actually take result set type. So different types of result set types will be available. You can suppose the result set which we used is non-rollable or non-updatable. So it means that non-rollable means it will actually only one direction. It will actually go through the only one direction. Suppose if it is 101 and it will take the next record, it will actually only having forward direction. It won't have the backward direction. If it is, suppose if the cursor is in middle inside the result set, if we want to make the cursor to back instead of going forward, so that is not possible with the basic create statement which we created. If you have the rollable result set create statement object, so there you have to mention the result set type. By default it's not rollable, and if you make this to rollable, so it will actually takes the next and previous as well. So if you see in the code, so we just mentioned result set dot next, right? If you make the statement to be rollable, then the result set are actually having methods like previous also. So that's the difference between a create statement without parameters and with parameters. The second parameter is set concurrency, which about, suppose if you are modifying any data within the result set, that data will be reflected in database as well. Suppose the current operation what we are doing is we just reading the data from here and it is keeping in our result set, we just printing it. Suppose if you want to make any modifications within the result set and you want the modifications to be reflected in your database. Suppose if you modify any record within this result set and that the change should reflect in database, means you should use the concurrency parameter, you have to use it. So that is a major difference between the create statement and the create statement parameters. So with this you can able to make the result set rollable front and back, and you can able to modify the result set so that the database also will reflect. So because the result set can be modified, but that is the reason people actually used this first statement most frequently, because if they can able to give this kind of permission, so the other developers can do changes, like they can modify the result set by mistakenly, and that will actually impact the database changes. That is the reason this is not much preferred, and these actually prefer to use it. And if you want to modify any records, try it's good to use update queries and all. So this particular result set type actually used for making the result set to move forward and backward. The other method is void set auto commit. This you can have any boolean. So with the connection object, you can able to set the auto commit, because in our case we haven't set any connection dot set auto commit true or false. By default, it set it as true. But if you want to make it false, and suppose if you have set of commands to be executed, only then you have to do the commit. For that case, you can use auto commit to false. Then you can commit the transactions with the connection dot commit. For that, you will be having, suppose if you are setting this set auto commit to false, then you have to write set of lines of code. Then later you have to use the commit method, which is, so this will happen. Suppose if you want to execute 4 insert queries at the same time, if 4 insert queries has to be inserted successfully, then only you want to commit the transaction. Otherwise, you don't want to commit the transaction. So if you don't want to commit the transaction, it means like you just want to roll back the data, whatever you, suppose out of 4 queries, 2 got executed successfully, 2 got failed. So you don't want to insert those 2 queries in database, so you just want to revert those 2 also. If the 4 queries to be executed, then only you want to commit that. So if you want to revert it to that, you have to use the method called rollback. So these are all the important methods you have, and the one more important method is, once your transaction is done, you just want to close the connection. You don't want to keep the connection with you. You just want to close the connection. For that, you have a method called void close. So here in our example, I missed to mention. So after our execution is done, once our transaction is done, you just need to close the connection. So these are also part of JDBC important steps. Close connection. So if you are using any connection pool or something, so this connection closing and all, the pool will take care. Because we are not using any connection pooling, so we should close the connection. Otherwise, this connection will be open for a very long time, and unless database recognize there is unused connection, so it will be opened and the performance will be getting slow. And mostly in real time, people will be using connection pooling, that it actually takes care of opening and closing connections and all. We don't need to bother about closing connection in that case. But if you're writing the standalone application, it should make sure like you should close the connection. That's the best practice. So these are all the methods are available in the connection interface. The first one will be create statement, and second one is create statement with parameters, which makes you the result set rollable. The other methods are set auto commit to true or false. Depends on that, the commit and rollback is possible. Now we can see the other important one, which is the statement. So statement also, again, it's an interface. Let me move these aside a little bit. Let me have one divider. Statement is also an interface. It's not a class. In statement interface, we already seen like the methods are like execute query, which is used to execute select query, and we have other possible queries also. Suppose if you want to update any record, or if you want to insert any record, for that we have execute update. Let me write down one by one. The first one will be execute query, which actually takes an SQL query, SQL string, and it actually returns result set. I'm just writing RS because the space constraint. So it actually returns result set. The other one will be execute update. These are also takes SQL query, which is about the insert or update, or if you want to create any table or drop any table or delete any record. These things will be considered in execute update. This return type will be integer. So how many records are impacted with the execute update, those many number of records will be returned. Suppose if your execute update, if you're giving any insert query of one record, so it will actually return one number. And if you're deleting, if you're giving any delete query over here, so if 4 records got deleted, so it will actually return 4 as a count, because the number of rows affected, it will actually return that count here. The other method will be execute. So the SQL string here is used for calling procedures. So the procedure call will be used here. So if you want to execute any stored procedures or something, you can use the execute method. It will actually return Boolean. Whether it is executed properly or not, that result it will return. The other one will be execute batch. Execute batch actually executes set of commands. So suppose if you want to execute 10 SQL queries, so you should create a batch, and you should pass that batch to the batch.execute batch. If you give, then the entire batch will execute. In case of execute update, you will be getting only integer value, one result, because only one query it will be there. In batch, you will be having multiple SQL queries. That is the reason it is returning integer type of array. So it depends on each query, one result will be stored in integer array. So these are all the important methods in statement interface. The next topic we can discuss about result set. Here I can carve the spaces. Need more space for this particularly. Phase. So these also an interface. These not a class again. So this interface actually used for reading the data, right? Whatever statement object it is executed, so those data actually stored into the result object, and this is actually having set of methods like for checking next record is available or not. It will be used for next, and for getting data it is used int, string, or boolean, or different methods. Let us go through one by one. The first method we will be discussing is next. Next method actually returns a boolean. So if the record is available, the next record is available, then only it will return true, otherwise it will return false. The other method will be previous. So in our case, we haven't used previous method, we just use next, because this is not rollable results statement. We just created a normal statement. If you are using this kind of statement, like with result set type and all, then you can have a previous method as well. So that is also return boolean. And the next important method will be first. First also returns boolean. So if the first record is available or not, only the first record. Suppose in our case that is possible, like we have only one record, that will actually check whether the first record is available or not. If the first record is available, so the cursor will able to move it, so that it will actually return whether at least one record is there, then first will return true. The other methods will be the regular methods, like suppose if you are getting any integer value, we have to use getInt. If you are using get string values, and then you have to use getString, like how we used here. So getInt is used to access the integer type of data. getString is used to access the string type of data. And again, we have options like either you can mention the column name or the column index. So these are all the set of methods we'll be having with the result set. One is getInt. Obviously, it will return integer type. It will take column name or column index. So either of one you can give it, and it will actually execute. Obviously, this will return an integer type. We wrote that. So these are all the different set of methods we have. So we have other methods like getString and all we just wrote in the example. Result set interface, which actually used for traversing through the data, like how we are using SQL workbench for accessing the data. The same way, the result set object will be used for traversing data front and back. So these are all the very important classes and interfaces we have it in JDBC. The next tutorial we're going to discuss about the very important topic, which is the prepared statement. So we have the statement available, which is simply executing queries and executing standard queries and all. So if you want to make any insertions to be dynamic and all, we can look at it, a prepared statement. First, before getting into the prepared statement, first we can see how actually use insert query in JDBC. Then we can go for a prepared statement, how benefit is actually, so that you can understand the benefit of prepared statement. Thanks guys, thanks for watching, and keep remember all these classes and interfaces, so that makes your interviewer will be happy.